It was a tremendous moment when Theo Clark marked the publication of the All-Party Parliamentary Group report into birth trauma. It's the first time birth trauma had been addressed at such a high level before. And that's not because birth trauma is something terribly new or especially uncommon. As the report marked itself, there's probably between 4 and 5% of women who've given birth who could be diagnosed with PTSD as a result of their experiences. However, because MPs have tended to be older and overwhelmingly male, it's not something that had occurred to them before it happened to one of their own. It's not because they're terrible people, it's just that we all have a limited number of things that we can focus on at once. And until it was brought to their attention, it just hadn't occurred to them. I've heard Theo give her account of her birth story on a few different occasions, and there's one point in it that makes me feel like I'm kicked in the chest every single time, and even when I know that it's coming. After the acute phase of her medical emergency had been dealt with, Theo and her daughter were left alone and given some privacy to get to know each other, as what often happens. However, she was still kind of numb from the anesthetic that she'd had for her procedure from the waist down, and so she used the call bell to ask someone to hand her daughter to her. The person who answered the call bell, presumably a midwife, heard what it is that Theo was asking for and said these words, "Not my baby, not my problem," and then left. And every single time my heart breaks for Theo, and I think, oh my goodness, Theo, you deserved so much better in that situation, and I'm really, really sorry that things happened the way that they did. Almost instantaneously after that, milliseconds later, my second thought, and I appreciate that this might be difficult for people who have had poor experiences of maternity healthcare professional, but my second thought immediately goes to the midwife who answered the call bell, and I think, oh my goodness, what's happened to you? What have you encountered in your working life that you thought that the best way to proceed in the situation was to put such a firm barrier between you and someone who really needed your help? What's gone wrong here? And whatever it is, I'm really sorry that things have turned out that way, and I really wish they hadn't. You deserve better than that. We all deserve better than that. As I said before, between 4 and 5% of people will have could have a diagnosis of PTSD following their birth experience. The best studies show that among midwives, between 17 and 35% of us could be diagnosed with PTSD as a result of the things that we've come across in our working lives. Obviously, that impacts the care that we're going to be able to give. And we need everyone in maternity services, whichever side they're on in it, whether they're accessing care or whether they're trying to give care, everybody deserves better than that. We were told years ago that there's no magic money tree for the NHS, but the COVID pandemic showed that's not the case. In a crisis, it is possible to find the resources to be able to invest in tremendous projects at speed. What we need is the social capital and the political capital to be able to move this conversation forward and to be able to point out that this is also a crisis. It's been a slow burn of a crisis, an erosion over many, many years rather than a dam bursting. But it's a crisis nonetheless, and it can be fixed. We can make the investments that are necessary so that everybody in maternity care, whether we're working in it, whether we're accessing care, whether we're the children being born in it, deserves so much better than what's currently on offer. And that can happen with the right investment and will.